little more triumphant. So, Sean, you got some good taste. That was an amazing grace song. So, welcome everybody. Uh, Welcome family, friends, coworkers, students, former students. Welcome to Sean Seligman's Celebration of Life service. And I think the key thing here, it's a celebration, okay? There's been enough tears, there's been enough grief, but now for the next couple hours, it's okay to laugh. It's okay to chuckle. It's okay to smile a lot. And I'm sure that's exactly what Sean would want during this time. So great to see this amazing turnout, but there's just one more person we want to go ahead and invite into this time and place. So let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, while we come to you today with heavy hearts, we also come full of gratitude that you blessed so many people to have their lives changed, impacted, and made better because they knew Sean. Thank you for his life. And Lord, thank you that just over the next couple hours here, that there would be a comfort and a joy as we celebrate a life so well lived. And we pray this all in the name of Jesus, and everybody here can say, Amen. So, Sean Robert Seligman, 63, of Centerton, Arkansas, passed away unexpectedly on April 12th at UAMS in Little Rock. He was born on March 5th, 1963, in St. Louis, Missouri. Sean was preceded in death by his parents, David Arthur Seligman Jr., and Rosalie Farmer Seligman. And he is survived by his beloved wife of 18 years, Amy Seligman, his stepson Hayden, his brother Johnny Lee Seligman of Little Rock, his sister, this is a long one, Deborah Ann Seligman Ogden of Little Rock, as well as 3 nephews and 1 niece. Sean graduated from McClellan High School in Little Rock and earned his undergraduate degree at OBU, Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia. He later received his master's degree. Amy, I didn't know he had a master's degree. Man, from Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. And this is amazing. For 30 years, Sean dedicated his life to coaching and teaching at Gentry High School, where he coached football and baseball, and most recently, as everybody knows, powerlifting. And under his leadership, the powerlifting team has achieved a state championship this past March. And prior to his time at Gentry, Sean coached at Biloxi High School in Mississippi and at Fort Pierce at Lemon Bay High Schools in Florida. Sean was a parent. He had a deep passion for coaching, and he left a lasting impact on the lives of students and athletes. He was committed to helping young people grow into the strong, capable individuals prepared for life beyond. And above all, Sean was a devoted, loving husband and father. And he had a special affection, of course, for his furry friends, treating each as a cherished member of the family. In his free time, he enjoyed working in the yard, watching classic Western films. I picture him as a John Wayne kind of guy, right? Come on. Admiring old cars, and staying active, of course, through a little bit of weightlifting. So in lieu of flowers, memorial donations may be made to the Gentry High School Sean Seligman Memorial Powerlifting Scholarship. That's a lot of words to get on a scholarship piece of paper right there. The Bella Vista Animal Shelter or the Centerton Animal Shelter. So now many of you may be wondering, like, who are you? Who is this guy up here, right? Is he the pastor of the church? No, I'm Jim Zielinski, and I've had the honor and privilege of working alongside Amy for essentially the last 16 years at Team Direct. So when I first came on board, it was Amy who was my mentor, my guide, and my shepherd. And it was Amy who thought it was a really good idea that on the second day of my employment, that she would trot me down to Fayetteville, to the Walton shareholders meeting, and demo one of our products in front of what seemed like hundreds of Walmart employees. And that product was a shake weight. And while I was really understood I was embarrassed at the time, but now I think about it, really was a blessing now, because I feel like I have a connection with Sean. Like both of us now really sort of in that powerlifting community, right? Just a little bit like that. So, and I remember the other thing too, when I first started, I learned that Amy had been like relatively recently married, and she was married to this guy named Sean, and he was like 13, 14 years older than him. I'm like, man, what did she do? Like marry grandpa or something like that, right? And then I finally met Sean. I went, dude, this is not a grandpa whatsoever, man. He was a big, big man. So that picture of grandpa, that quickly vanished. So while we kind of have parts of Sean like present here, everybody can see the urn down there. And Amy, as I understand, like you should have got like the 2XL size of that thing because there's some leftovers. Okay, so you got to figure out where to kind of spread those out. But that bad boy was not big enough. So, but Amy and I discussed, we said, you know what? We want to make sure that Sean has a seat at the table here. So, well, what we're going to do is we're not necessarily going to have a seat, but we're going to have a table. And you got to set the table with something, right? So we decided what better than one of Sean's favorite lunchtime snacks. So some of you out there at school may know about this. So let's start with the first ingredient was simply bread, okay? And Sean, I got white bread. I know it's not good for you, but Sean, let's be honest, that ship has sort of sailed. Okay, now, and then secondly, Sean loved peanut butter. Now, Amy, I messed up. You said his favorite was Jif. I accidentally got Skippy, but nonetheless, I still fashion Sean as more of a great value kind of guy, but he was a brand name guy apparently, okay? So good so far, and what else did he like on those sandwiches? Oh, the cute little bear full of honey right here. So far he liked peanut butter and honey, and of course, you can see where we're going here. You're gonna crown off this delicacy with some great, no, not so ever. Sean liked to finish this off with a little bit of mustard on top of this. You know, I know everybody you can go like, ew, it's okay. Sean, I don't know what you were thinking, but I'm sure you ate alone quite a bit. So anyway, Sean, in honor of you, here's one of the weirdest lunches we may have ever seen, okay? You know, they say the Lord works in mysterious ways, and I kind of think maybe he does. Sometimes it's maybe more providence and the Lord's timing. Less than 48 hours ago, I returned from a men's ministry camp out in northern Arizona, and the title of it was Leaving a Legacy. And I actually taught one of the last segments of this camp, and was called Finishing Well. And man, I did not think that those lessons I would have to pretty soon apply to real life here. And when you think about Sean, he didn't just finish well. He ran his entire race so well. You know, in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, it says that each of us run a race with perseverance for the course marked out for us. And I think about Sean being a teacher for 30 years and other aspects of his life. That is perseverance. That is finishing well. But knowing the Sean that expected the best of you, demanded a lot of you. If Sean was here right now, he'd say, I ran my race. I crossed the finish line. I broke the tape. Now it's your turn. Every one of us here has a race to run, a course ahead of us. So Sean would say, run it. And Sean, I'm sorry for all the running references, because I suspect you probably didn't like to run a whole lot, right? But I looked through the Bible, I gotta tell you, it's kind of lean on all the powerlifting references. So work with me here on the running stuff, okay? So today, listen, we have an opportunity to hear a little bit of the legacy of Sean as a husband, a father, coach, teacher, and maybe just as a friend. You know, passing along a legacy isn't about what you leave to someone. It's really about what you leave in someone. That's a huge, huge difference. And I think as I look around here at all these faces, I guarantee you Sean probably left a lot in each and every one here. So for the next few minutes, we're going to have an opportunity from here for some of those folks where Sean poured into them. So Carrie, why don't you come on up? Let me follow my instructions here. 1, 2, 3. You should be good to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. That's very nice. Very good. My name is Kerry Humphrey, and I've had the privilege of knowing Sean for 42 years. I'm pretty sure that the only two people that have known him longer than me in this room are his brother and sister, Johnny and Deborah. Glad you guys are here. I've been married to my wife, Michelle, for 28 years. I have 4 daughters, 1 grandson, and another grandchild that is due any day now. None of this would have been possible without Sean Seligman being in my life. I will explain our journey in just a moment, because I kind of feel like my purpose is to connect the dots between Sean's younger years and his Gentry years. But we're in this great building where we praise and worship Jesus. Having said that, there's about 15 or 20 stories that I don't feel are appropriate for this room. But I'm gonna do my best to share the best of times that we had together as friends. Those other stories will be saved for another day. And I kind of feel like, in my opinion, as a Christian man, that Sean is in heaven because of the way he lived his life. The fact is that these 15 to 20 stories, he probably had to answer a few questions as he's getting ready to cross that line. And even though Jesus knows it all, he probably still had to explain. And, you know, I will say this, Jesus, if you're listening, Sean made me do it. Of course, that'll come back to get me at some point. I am very proud and honored to be here today to celebrate Sean and his life. But if you don't mind, I would like to call my part of this not a celebration of life, but a celebration of success. Because when you put everything together, whether you called him Sean or Coach Seligman, he worked hard to make everything and everyone around him more successful. His family, his students, and his athletes. Sorry. And before we go any further, I'd like to ask, if you are a student or an alumni of Gentry High School, would you mind standing up, please? Thank you. Thank you. That, my friends, is Sean's legacy. The fact that so many of you are here because of the impact that he had on your life touches my heart. Sean and I first met in college, Ouachita Baptist University, back in the mid-1980s. At first glance, he was exactly what you thought he was. A cool dude, tough, confident, and a good athlete. He could come across as someone with an attitude. But what made Sean different, what made him special, was what was underneath that exterior. Behind that tough guy was someone who genuinely cared about his friends. He showed up, he had your back, and once you were in his circle, you were in it for life. You know, I think, and I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to probably interject a few stories just to try to make you understand just who he was. When we were getting ready to graduate college, we were facing tough decisions. The toughest decisions that we had made up until that point were whether we were going to go to Pizza Hut or Sonic. And believe me, he loved both. And by the way, I did have a good laugh as we're driving to the church. We passed the Sonic. And I know my friend Sean would be surely ordering a Frito chili pie. But the real world was ahead of us, and real decisions had to be made. Sean and our friend Britt Stender were heading to Delta State University to coach as graduate assistant football coaches, following Coach Todd Knight, who had been named an assistant coach at Delta State that next season. Coach Knight went to Ouachita, and he is currently the head football coach and has been there for many, many successful years. I was going in a different direction, trying to find a teaching job in Arkansas, and honestly, it wasn't going well. I remember one day I had an interview in Fouke, Arkansas, down in the southwest corner of the state. This is also the home of the legendary Fouke Monster. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but if you haven't, Google it. It's an interesting story from the 70s. For those of you who have no idea where this is, it is a very, very small town down by Texarkana. Sean rode along with me because there was a barbecue place that he wanted to eat at, and he wanted to hang out with me, and so he drove down with me from Little Rock. And as we pulled up into Fouke, Arkansas, up to the high school, I knew that there was no way I was going to be working at this school. But Sean laughed. He said, "Go ahead and go in there. Just get it done. We'll go eat." So Sean sat in the car. I went in. About 20 minutes later, I came back out, and we were back on the road. I'm not even sure I said goodbye to the person I was talking to. We stopped to grab the barbecue, and that's when Sean did what he always did best. He looked at me and said, "Why don't you call Delta State? They have a new baseball coach. See if you can get a graduate assistant's role." He had asked previously he had asked me to do this, and I had told him that I had a lot of pressure from my dad to get a job. However, this time I started to listen because of the way the job market was. And that moment changed everything. Because of that conversation, I did make that call and ended up in Cleveland, Mississippi, working with the baseball program, and once again, right there with my good friend, Sean Seligman, both of us working on our master's degrees. Sean was smart. We had some good times in Cleveland, and it's a very small town, much like the eastern part of the state of Arkansas. It's the western part of the state of Mississippi is similar. So there's a lot of cotton fields, a lot of catfish farms and things like that. A lot of big mosquitoes too. But we did have some good times, and that's one of the 15 or 20 stories I can't tell. But one of these days, I'll write a book about Sean, and they'll be in there. A couple years later, we, with 2 years of college coaching on our resume, we graduated and we're back at the same crossroads, finding a job. At that point, Sean had already taken a job at Biloxi High School in Biloxi, Mississippi to start that fall, but I still didn't have a job. And again, my dad was giving me pressure to find a job. A good friend of ours at Delta State, who was the tennis coach, he offered for us to all go to Tampa, Florida, to stay at his brother's house for 10 days. And that included going to the beach every day. And if you know Sean, he loved the beach. So I told him I couldn't go. He's just begging me to go. Come on, 10 days. You still have plenty of time to find a job. And I was talked into it. So we went. So we go stay at our friend's house, or at our friend's brother's house. And and again, that's because Sean encouraged me to. While we're there, I made a comment that, man, if I could find a job here in Florida, I'd stay. I wouldn't go home. Well, our friend's brother, a good friend of his, was the assistant principal at Port Charlotte High School down in Southwest Florida. And he got me a job interview while we're on vacation. So we all hop in the car, and literally all we had were T-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. But we still made that trip. I interviewed, and I ended up getting the job. During our stay, Sean was in a best body on the beach contest. Now, this was before powerlifting, but he still always enjoyed lifting weights. And he didn't win because they gave it to a guy who, I shouldn't say it this way, but he was a rather large, not well-developed human being. And Sean made him look really bad, but he didn't win. But that was something that he definitely had a chuckle about over the years, because we had some great photos from that competition. I don't know if you ever saw those. Maybe they were buried. That fall, I moved down to Port Charlotte. Sean moves to Biloxi, where he coached baseball and football. And he and I kept in constant contact. We talked all the time. Of course, this was before cell phones, but he wanted to be in Florida because he wanted to be close to a beach. And even though Biloxi is down by the water, it wasn't his cup of tea. So a couple of years later, in the fall of 1993, Sean joined me at Lemon Bay High School in Inglewood, Florida. I had moved to that school to take the head baseball coaching position in the spring of '93. Sean coached football and was my assistant coach in baseball. And that's when I really got to see my friend, Sean Sligman, coach Sean Sligman in his element. Sean was a tough coach. I'm sure some of you that are in here know that. He was demanding. He expected hard work and discipline. So we started what we called, we called it Hell Week right before baseball season. And I let Sean run Hell Week because of the goatee, the muscles, and he came across as somebody that was tough. So I let him kind of haze him a little bit, kind of get into him. And it was funny because he always had a way of saying things that would put you down, but only to raise you back up. He was a compassionate, but he understood people. He knew how to connect. Now, some of you students may recall being called Ned. And by the chuckles, I know you have. And I know that didn't always sound like a compliment, but here's the truth. There are grown men and women today in their late 40s, early 50s who were called Ned by Coach Sligman back in the early 90s. And they still smile about it today. Because when Sean said something like that, it wasn't to tear you down. It was his way of bringing you in. That was his way of connecting, of showing you that you mattered. Sean coached with me for 2 years. He worked also at Fort Pierce High School, where he was the baseball coach, and he also coached football. He came back to Lemon Bay and coached with me in 1996, and stayed with me the summer of '97 before he came up here to start his time at Gentry. Before he moved, he spent the summer with me, and we, did a lot of things together. There was one summer night when I owed one of my ball players a steak dinner. He had won a game or whatever, and so Sean and I took him to Outback Steakhouse. During that dinner, the wife of one of my close friends and her neighbor were out with a group for a girls' night out. My friend Missy and her neighbor Michelle came over to our table and asked if we wanted to join the group next door at Chili's. Not a lot to do in Port Charlotte, Outback and Chili's. After a short conversation, we declined and we headed home after dinner. Sean was driving my car. I can only assume it's because I had a few beers. On the way home, my car phone rang. Yes, the 1990s version of a cell phone that was actually in a bag connected to my car lighter. It was Michelle, Missy's friend. She wanted Sean and I to come back to Chili's because all of the others had left and she had a babysitter until midnight. I looked at Sean and he's like, dude, let's go. Let's just go. What else are we gonna do? Go home, watch a movie? So I said, all right, let's do it. So we turned around, spent a couple hours sitting at the bar with Michelle, and that night was the start of a relationship with my future wife. 6 months later, we were engaged, and in June of 1998, Michelle and I got married. 1 year from the day that Sean insisted we go back to Chili's. We were standing at the Old Mill in North Little Rock in 95-degree heat, getting married. And of course, Sean stood right next to me as my best man. Now here we are, 28 years later, 4 daughters, and now grandparents. So when I look back at my life, I can say this without hesitation. Without Sean, I don't have a master's degree. I don't move to Florida. I never meet my wife. I don't have my daughters. And of course, my grandson. And another one due any day. To say Sean was a big part of my life is a massive understatement. Sean went on to build an incredible career at Gentry High School, but I know most of you know that. His legacy as a coach was built on hard work, discipline, accountability, and the belief that every athlete could be pushed to the next level. He was a great teacher and an even better coach. He proved that over the course of 30 years at Gentry High School. 8 championship rings below here, and 1 just earned recently. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of consistency, leadership, and a deep commitment to the people he coached. I was super proud to see that Sean's number 40 baseball jersey was retired at Gentry High School. That was a great moment for the family and all that followed Sean's career. I would like to challenge Gentry High School administration, the athletic department, faculty, staff, students, past and present, to consider something even more lasting. Let's make sure that Sean Seligman, Coach Sean Seligman's legacy continues. Inside of the Pioneer Athletic Complex, I think you should be naming the weight room after Coach. The Coach Sean Seligman weight training facility. Can we please consider making that happen? If you need a donation, I will be glad to be the first in line. Because if there's one thing I know for sure, Coach Seligman built more than strong athletes. He built strong people. His goal for you as an athlete was not to be the best athlete you could be. It was to be the best person that you could be. He wanted to make sure that when you graduated, you were prepared for life. and for the many obstacles and challenges you would face. That is why Coach Seligman got into coaching 38 years ago. Sean had a way of impacting people, sometimes with a push, sometimes with a joke, sometimes with a nickname that you didn't ask for, but always with his heart. Thank you, Sean, for being my friend, for pushing me when I needed it, and for being a part of every good thing in my life. Amy, Sean used to say to me that one day he would find a tall, blonde woman to grow old with. You two were a gift for God. God put you together. Sean loved the Dallas Cowboys, college baseball, working out, as you can tell, and going to the beach. When he found you, you checked all of those boxes. I remember when he called me to tell me about you, one of the first things he told me was about your son, Hayden. You two were the perfect package to join Team Seligman. Every time we talked, he would go out of his way to speak about his son. That is who Sean Seligman was in his personal life, a man of great integrity who loved his family. That makes me incredibly proud of my friend, Sean Seligman. I love you, brother. Thank you.
Well, for the first time ever, I think I'm standing on stage without something in front of me to read. I'm one of those Neds, as a lot of us in this room are, and I want to touch a little bit on my experience with Coach Seligman. Is a man that started a program from scratch pretty much, built a baseball program that we all love to play. And the way that he inspired us to be great athletes and great people, it was pretty special. The jersey that he was referring to that got retired the other night was from my senior class, the year 2000. And there's a couple of guys here that are actually on that jersey. But if you ever attended his classroom, if you ever went into his classroom, you saw that jersey on his wall. It was something that was very special to him. So when I reached out to the administration, it's like, Gentry's never done this. Is there a way we can retire number 40? And it was with zero hesitation that the Gentry School Administration and athletic department got together, formed a committee, voted on it, had a meeting, the whole nine, in about 6 days. So that right there tells us that Gentry Public Schools and the administration is on board to do what it takes to honor Coach Seligman. So I thank them for that. One thing that I want to say too is, how many of us in here ever had to go get a left-handed screwdriver? That was something that Seligman liked to do. He would send kids to Coach Graham's class or some other coach's class and say, hey, go get me a left-handed screwdriver. Or how about my blinker fluid's low in the car? I need you to go get some blinker fluid. You know, those are the things that Seligman would do on a daily basis. And I don't know, that was just, he was a human being. He was a person that cared about everybody that walked through those doors. My career at Gentry is totally different than most people's, but you know, I spent 4 years playing football there, baseball there. Then I moved off, come back as a volunteer. moved off, come back as a volunteer. I've coached both of my kids now through softball as a volunteer. And every time I show up at that school, Seligman's out there driving circles in the parking lot, you know, in driver's ed. And he'll pull over there and, hey, how's the team looking? How's the kids going? You know. He was always a caring individual. And I mean, I'm looking at God. He kept all of us alive. He kept our football memories, our baseball memories. I mean, I kid you not, guys. There was 47 VHS tapes in his classroom. He kept everything. And if you attended his classroom, you've probably seen me on the TV. You've probably seen half of these guys in here on TV before they got DVDs because he didn't know how to operate a DVD machine. I don't know. I had a lot of stuff I was going to say, but I'm just thankful for the man that he was and how he treated everyone and how he made us all feel special.
Hey guys, I'm Neela McGowan, and I competed on his powerlifting team for 2 years. And for those past 2 years, I spent almost my entire school day in either the weight room or his classroom. And I would hear about just about everything that happened in his life. You know, powerlifting, pickleball, his dogs. I mean, he could talk for hours about, you know, I'd end up missing classes and being late. You know, but even though through all that, I've learned so much about how to be a better person and how to be an athlete. And I never competed in a sport. And he took the time to teach me everything I needed to know about powerlifting. The last things that Coach Seligman ever told me was that he was proud of all that I've done and believed that I would be able to help the team at our last competition of my senior season. And at the time, I was so worried about going to a competition without him, and he knew that. And hearing him say those things to me, it meant everything. Like, it was very important to me. The team's last competition was on April 11th, and throughout that powerlifting meet, all I could think about was going back to school the next Monday and telling him all of the things the team accomplished. He insisted so many times that he wished he could have been there with the whole team, and sometimes it would be all that he would rant about for the week leading up to the meet. Coach Seligman was and still is my biggest role model, and I always wanted to compete in some of the biggest competitions out there and then be able to come back and tell him all about it. I've found that the things I miss the most are the small moments, like telling him about a competition, planning out my next powerlifting meet, or just passing by his room. Passing by his room to say hi. At the time, those moments seemed so small, but now I realize they were such a big part of my life. Coach Seligman pushed me to be a better person and athlete every day, and I'll never forget the impact he's had on me. If it wasn't for him, I would have never found my love for powerlifting. and I'm forever grateful for all the time and effort he put into starting such an amazing program at Gentry.
Okay, we back on. Well, thank you all for those stories and those powerful words. And you know, from the comments that we just heard, and I think you've all seen all the social media posts, reading through some of these things up here on a board, there was a common thread that was woven into Sean Seligman's life. He saw something in you before likely you saw something in yourself. And again, people said it over and over. He believed in me. He believed in students that were struggling, maybe athletes that had huge doubts, or just sometimes he just believed in a person that just needed somebody in their corner. He was there for them. And because he believed in them, they started to believe in themselves. And that's more than just being a teacher. That's ministry, right? And I think about it, that's modeling exactly what Jesus did. Whether it was a leper, a tax collector, the woman at the well, or a disciple named Peter who denied him 3 times, Jesus was always championing the underdog, the outcast, or those who were marginalized. Sean was tough, but boy, he was a compassionate man. You know, in a lot of the comments, many students refer to Sean as a father figure. Right? He was so easy to have a conversation with, so approachable. You could talk to him about anything, right? And he would offer counsel and advice, just show genuine care, and sometimes just sat there and listened. You know, and in a world today where, let's be honest, I mean, a lot of kids don't have a dad, Sean so beautifully filled that void in so many kids' lives. You know, Psalm 68 talks about being a father to the fatherless. Sean lived that out so well. And we talk about that heart that he had with students and teammates, but man, the heart that he had for his family, all right? Hayden shared some simple but really awesome memories with Sean. It seemed to evolve around fast cars, right? And the pursuit of looking for that, or for trying to find that 1970 SS Chevelle, right? The perfect model of that. And I'm not sure if you're still looking for it, but I remember that car too when I was growing up. A 1970 SS Chevelle, like that was a really cool car. But then again, my dad put me in the station wagon, so I thought like any kind of car was cool other than the one I was in. So, and then Hayden, you talked about the time that you remember when Sean came to pick you up at high school in his dream car, the 2011 Corvette, right? And how cool is that to be picked up at school in a Corvette? Man, that is so much better than being picked up by a Subaru. I think I can say that. I don't think there's anybody from Fayetteville here, right? That's going to be insulted. But that's what Sean did. Man, he just created moments that just stayed with you. And Amy. He was such a devoted husband. You know, Amy shared something simple, but I think it's powerful. That every day when Sean would get to work, what did he do? He would call. And every day before he left to come home, what would he do? Call. It sounds so simple, but I think just wanting to hear his voice. And I'm sure there's probably wives out there now elbowing their husbands going, why aren't you doing that for me? You know? So Amy said, I was his whole heart. And you saw that in the life that they shared together. And it was a lot of simple things. Talk about working in the yard together, right? Going out, picking out flowers together. I can hear Sean going, hey, babe, those are some pretty petunias. We should get them. Oh, and then working out side by side, right? And he actually got you into powerlifting, didn't he? And if I remember correctly, you were like bringing home some hardware. Okay, I'm not sure how big the competitions were, but nonetheless, it was hardware. Was it like the southeast region of the northern part of the western part of Oklahoma, Division III, Area 2, Section 1? But nonetheless, it was hardware. And you guys sitting on the back porch and listening to music. And I bet it might have been who? Kenny Chesney. Yeah, I got this going in my mind right now. No shoes, no shirt, no problem. Why do I suspect he probably liked that song? Especially the no shirt part, maybe. Or half of a shirt. Oh, man. But not everything was rosy and unicorns and gummy bears with Sean and Amy. They did have their rough times that usually began in the autumn on Sunday afternoons when they would sit down together and watch their beloved Dallas Cowboys. Oh, the shame, the defeat, the discouragement, the despair. But I think it only further strengthened your marriage and your resolve to stay together, right? So, and Amy, this may be true. Now, if Sean wasn't going like this way here, the whole ashes to ashes, dust to dust, if he was going to have like the casket burial, kind of going like 6 feet down, and I heard he was considering hiring the Dallas Cowboys to be his pallbearers. And what it said was like, hey, one more opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys to let me down one more time. Amy and Sean, man, just doing life together always. I mean, that's faithfulness, that's commitment, that's simply love. So many chapters in the storybook of Sean's life. And we would indeed be remiss if we did not talk about the storytelling that Sean had. He loved to tell stories, didn't he? Can I get an amen on that, right? Yeah, they were hilarious. Sometimes they were really long. Coach, the bell rang. I got to go. No, hold on. I'm almost done. In fact, I bet if Sean were here doing his own service, we'd probably only be halfway through his first story. But yeah, and maybe some of you are going, oh, gee, guy up here, man, you're probably giving Sean a run for his money with all the talking. Let's get this thing going. Man. So, and we get to the point now as we kind of begin to close here. And by the way, that's what pastors say when there's another 30 minutes to go. I think Sean will want you to know that his story, it didn't end early on that morning of April 12th. The story of relationships, encouragement, passion, excellence, discipline, kindness, compassion, joy, and ultimately love now get handed off to each and every one of us, okay? Young man, Hayden, come on up here. And it starts, no, you can say, Hayden, you come on up here. I'm not gonna make you come up here, okay? I'm not that mean. All right, here, take this and give one to your mama too. And this is the handoff. All those qualities, those great qualities that Sean had, they'd be memorialized. And Sean's going, oh no, another running reference, right? Handing off the baton. I'm sorry, Sean, but I did not want to bring a dumbbell here with those words written on it. Just didn't seem appropriate, okay? Look, the best way for each and every one of us to remember and memorialize Sean is to imitate the best that he poured into each and every one of you. And let's be honest, at gatherings like this, I know I do it, you start pondering your own mortality, right? And your own life. Young people, don't tune out here. This is really, really important because life is indeed precious and fleeting. Amy, you found that out unexpectedly. In the book of James, chapter 4, one of the versions says, our lives are like a morning fog. It's here for a little while, and then it's gone. Sean, though, would remind us, though, when that fog lifts, the sun comes out. But he'd also remind us, too, in a spiritual sense, when that fog of our life is gone, the S-O-N is out, that sun, to greet you and welcome you into eternity with a hearty, well done, good and faithful servant. And if we all want to hear those glorious words, we need to grab hold and trust and believe what the Apostle Paul said about Jesus. He said, salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. The Apostle Paul, he wrote those words in Acts chapter 4, verse 12. 4:12, the date that Sean himself stepped into eternity. People may forget what you said, may forget what you taught, but they will never, ever forget how you made them feel. Sean made people feel seen and valued. Coach, you will be missed more than you will ever know. Father, thank you for Sean's life and the love that he showed so faithfully. We lift up Amy and Hayden. Surround them with your peace and strength. And while we know there are indeed tears in the night, there will be a joy in the morning. Help us all carry forward the good that Sean lived out, to love others, to encourage, and to live with purpose. Remind us all of the hope we have in you, that this is indeed not the end. In Jesus' name, amen. So Amy asked that while this is sort of the end of the formal part of this, please go ahead and let's hang out for a while, share some more stories, carry the untold stories. You may want to go in a corner and share some of those. There'll be some refreshments back there. So, and if anybody's really hungry, we do have the table set for the peanut butter and honey and mustard sandwiches. So thank you all for coming, and let's hang out a little bit longer.